So we're doing this wargaming thing, and I was talking to a wargaming friend. We've been playing a lot of Ogre recently. Fantastic wargame, hex map-based wargame. And I'm going to be pushing up some Ogre Tactica for the game itself, but also using it as a tool, a direct tool to showcase kind of some very, very specific high-level tactics, wargaming tactics, independent of the system, independent of whatever you're playing, essentially using the strength of that war game to kind of show some different ideas. You could take those and port those to whatever system you're playing. That's going to be coming soon. But within that framework, as we're playing Ogre, we're talking about different wargaming systems that we like and that we enjoy, systems that are still around, systems that disappeared and we don't really know why. You know, they were solid, but for various reasons. And that got us to the focus of developing your own war game. If you've got an idea for a war game, if you've got an idea for a system, what would that look like, right? What are some ideas on there? And this was kind of my take on it. Now, I want to pause and sidebar for a moment. If you have an idea for a war game, a system, whether it's mass battle, skirmish, freeform, hex-based, do it. Do it. Bring it to development. Make it happen. And I'm not quite sure how you do that, but I'm here to say I love playing games. You love playing games. All of us here that are on YouTube, we love games. Bring it. Make it happen. Otherwise, look, it's going to be a year from now, and you haven't done it yet, and we're back here having this conversation. Rather than a year from now, we can be playing an awesome new war game. So that rant, stepping aside, back into the framework, my thought was, if I was going to develop a war game, whether it's mass combat, skirmish, somewhere in the middle, I think you would load up in one of two areas because on the one hand, you've got a lot of competition out there, a lot of systems out there, and I'm not just talking about physical tabletop. I'm talking about you've also got competing digital and other media. And then on top of that, new systems, old systems, a lot of stuff that's in play. But the positive side is it's never been a better time to launch a system or a war game because you've got 3D printing, you've got the ability to get good artwork, you have the ability to distribute it through all sorts of different channels. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. So within that framework, I was like, you know what? I would go in one of two directions. The first, and I'd go all in. It's like, you know, I've got, I'm sitting there in the hollow deck on the Enterprise playing poker. I would go all in. Even though Data's running those calculations, I would go all in on one of these. I would either do this or I would do that. I would either make the rules very, 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 very unique. Something that has not been done or has been done but not fully exploited yet. I would go entirely in that direction. And I'm going to pull in an example of this. It's a role-playing game, but within my wargaming, board gaming, RPG gaming history of it, this really impressed me. And then I'll pull in an example of a new actual war game. So, you know, I was doing this D&D thing, Dungeons & Dragons thing, AD&D, and playing it for a long time. New system, well, didn't quite come out. I guess it did come out. Rolemaster, where it's essentially, you know, combat is very, very lethal. But what made it interesting and captivated my attention beyond D&D Redbox and AD&D at the time, you know, this is pre 3.5, 3.0, 3.x, was, wow, combat was lethal. And you had all these charts that you rolled on. So like if you got hit with a Warhammer, it interacted with different armors. It depended on where you got hit, depended on the damage. That influenced what you can do. It was like chart after chart after chart rolling. Combat and Rolemaster took like a day, but it was really, really interesting. Now, whether that is your cup of tea or not, you could say, hey, this is vastly different than AD&D, which was the king. You know, this was TSR at the height, at its zenith before it collapsed and got ruined. Going up against D&D would be crazy, but this was something really, really different. So that's an example. The rule set, I mean, you know, spell law, claw law, arms law for for Rollmaster, like, it was kind of generic fantasy. There was a couple of okay things, but it was the rules, the system itself that you were like, wow, this is different, completely different at the time. Let me jump into this. Okay, an example of an actual war game, and I've pushed up a lot of these tactics, videos, reviews to my channel here under the God Tier playlist if you want to dive in further. God Tier is a skirmish game. Steamforged Games, I think it's been out 5, 6, 7 years. I jumped in at the start of it. It's a warband skirmish game. You've got a champion, you've got followers, you have 1 to 3 warbands, and I go against you. It's very, very unique in how it alternates turns, how the units interact, how the different combos and powers work. It's almost like a puzzle type game with the fluidity of miniatures and where they move. And all the things that are kind of like, not really good in skirmish games, they blew that apart. An example, and I'm not going to dive too much into it. Obviously, you can check out that playlist for examples, not only as a game recommendation, but if you're developing your own system. One of the problems with skirmishes, if you have a leader or a powerful unit and it gets killed, you're like, oh, I'm out of the game. Or in terms of small war bands, if you get hit with the alpha strike, right? I've got 6 guys and a leader moving in. I get hit walking across with a heavy machine gun or a sniper. I lose, 4 or 5 of my units and my leader. I got 2 dudes left. I'm like, I'm out of this game. We might as well not even bother playing. I make a mistake. The dice go against me. I'm done. That's the challenge with all skirmish games. Well, God Tier is interesting because the champions, they're infused by these tiers from heaven, like powers. You get knocked out, you never get killed. You can bring your champion back. Of course, that costs resources. It's not free, but you're never truly knocked out in the game. Likewise, your followers, the warband members, when they get killed, your opponent earns points. You can bring those back, but they cost resources. So that's interesting. You're never fully alpha striked out of the game. Takes that completely off the table. The other aspect is, as you play through a skirmish game, because there is a small amount of units on the table, you can't absorb those losses. Often, if a game is 6 turns or whatever mission turns, you get halfway through and you're like, look, I'm going to play this out, but I don't have the material to continue winning on this. I can't. God Tier turns that on its head in that you score. There's a mission and you have to achieve goals. You have 6 turns, but every turn you score points. So it's like you won the first round. Okay, I'm still in the game. Now I win the second round. Or you win the first and second round. Well, third round, I really got to do well. You win first, second, third round. Okay, I've got the last 2. I got to win absolutely everything. Things might be hard, but you're never truly knocked out of the game. And then, of course, all the combos. Fantastic. Re-imaged skirmish from the ground up. Absolutely fantastic. So that's the first way that I would go. If I'm going to do a wargaming system, something new, make the rules, make the presentation so different, something that hasn't been done. Wargamers who have seen it all and done it all are like, hey, this looks really, really interesting. Setting's important. Narrative is important. Presentation of art and miniatures, possibly important. But all that can't be bad. But all that takes a back seat to the rules. Now, on the opposite side, because again, I'm all in with this. On the opposite side, creativity, I would focus all on the narrative. Something that has never been done or something that's a twist that's really, really unique to the point where the rules have to be, and I mean this in a good way, they just have to be passable. It's the type of thing where I pick up this system and I look through and I say, okay, the rules are solid. They don't have tons of bells and whistles, and they're a little bit simplistic to things. But wow, look at this narrative. Wow, if I could jump into this narrative, that would be really, really amazing. Pushing with that. An example that I think is going to do this really well, jumping in with war games. And I don't know 100%. This is just kind of where we're looking. I pushed up to the channel, I think yesterday or the day before, Lone Wolf skirmish miniatures game. Now, Lone Wolf is one of those choose-your-own adventure books from the 80s. It's a campaign where one book goes into the other. You play Lone Wolf, who's a Kai, kind of like a Jedi Ranger swordsman, and you level up and continue your character through. Really deep narrative, great universe to explore. You get sucked into Lone Wolf, I guarantee you won't be disappointed. And I have some Lone Wolf Tactica without any spoilers that I pushed up to the channel. It's under that playlist. But Lone Wolf is kind of re-imaging and branching out or reprinting some stuff from back in the day. And in Lone Wolf, I got to be careful, no spoilers, there's an iconic battle in the first book that you have to navigate. And the first time you encounter that, you're like, wow, this is really cool. This miniature skirmish game with actual Lone Wolf inspired miniatures recreates that. And they're going to be bringing that to market, and they're going to be supporting it with other units and Lone Wolf. Well, so I'm looking at this and saying the rules are going to be from what we've seen. And again, like this is, what we've seen. They're very light. They're very beer and pretzels. The awards are not going to be won on the rules. And I mean that in a positive way, because when they launched this on Kickstarter, I'm all in because I love Lone Wolf. The rules need to just be passable and playable and quick. What the selling point is going to be that's going to pull people in is it's Lone Wolf. It's the miniatures. It's the narrative. It's immersing yourself in Lone Wolf. The miniatures are just kind of an excuse. Here's a great example, even better example. Tried not to bring this up first. Games Workshop. They're there to sell Space Marines in miniatures. The rules, which have gotten, bloated and sophisticated over the years, it's just an excuse to sell you miniatures. The rules are what they are, a mess. You're there because you like Space Marines or whatever faction you play. Currently, I'm back to playing Grey Knights and Necrons. So within that focus, if I'm going to develop something, I need the rules to be passable, ideally simplified, very, very easy. I'm not saying like one-page rules, but quick enough that I could sit down, read it, and play it. But then make the narrative, make something so unique, hardly ever seen, not done, where you're like, wow, I'm going to be pulled into this narrative and I want to play it and explore it, almost like a miniaturized miniature game RPG. If I was going to develop my own thing and I was going to do this, I wouldn't try to hit all 3 or 4 points and develop this and that because the market is what it is. I would go all in one of those areas. But circling back around, look, if you've got an idea, if you've been thinking about something, look, make this happen. Do it. Do it. You've got that creativity. You've got that momentum. Build on it. Let's not be revisiting this a year from now where you're like thinking to yourself, listening to a Fritz Tactica, trying to make success where I have failure and work things out. And you're like, man, we were talking about that a year ago. He's talking about that. Like I should have written up those rules, tried to do something, tried to create something. Do it, do it, do it. But that's my one piece, my not even 2 cents, my 1 cent, my D6 advice. Go in one of those directions.